Hello, hello. Good evening, chatters. How are we all doing? Clandestine, hello. Granola, Tortilla, Nikki, Noomba. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another exciting week of Pre-Chatchats Beetle ID. Um, on the order of new business for the stream. Um, we got a package. Christmas in your office. That's awesome, Granola. We also decorated at work, so this is the home office, but we did also put them up at my regular office too. Um, okay, everything is in here. So I mentioned the other day how we were planning to cut the spade tip forceps to make them like to grab labels, and we were out of cutting wheels. We have got the cutting wheels. So we're not going to do this tonight. And I am out of town this weekend. So this will probably be back on Monday's stream. We'll hook up some power tools. We'll make some questionable decisions, but yes, we got our little reinforced cut wheels here, so we'll be able to go right through that metal. And hopefully, it'll be a pretty fast process. I only have 2 pairs of the forceps, so we can't mess up that much. But this is a proof of concept before ordering more for work. But yeah, we were going to do this on Monday, and I had the tools and I had my little vise and everything set up, but I didn't have any of these. I either lost them or have not yet found them in the move, or I just ran out of them. But I got a bag at 50, so we should be good to do lots of cutting at some point. So these are here. This will be very likely a next Monday stream. Tomorrow, I have to gather all of the beetles that I've been working on um, from that other museum since I'm going down there on Friday. I also have to make soup. We are not set up for a kitchen stream, um, but I'm going to a soups giving. Um, so just a little bit late. I'm making Italian wedding soup, so homemade meatballs, all that good stuff. I will post pictures in one of the discords. I don't know, the yummies. I don't know. Um, but the reason I'm going down to Orlando is because of this soups giving event that my friend is hosting. So I'm gonna go down there. We're gonna eat soups together, and I'm also going to drop off specimens at that other museum. Um, Also, very exciting and hopefully in the cards is we're going to be adding, again, fingers crossed, a new family to the Synoptic collection. So hopefully by the time we get to that section of the collection, we will have a new family to learn. There are these things called bellids that are weevils that are only in cycads. So like these really old kind of palm tree looking things. Um, and they're only known from Florida. Let me always don't want that. I want this. Yes, Control Shift B. We'll put that there. Aha! We're slowly learning how to contribute to these things here. So these are bellids. These are the cycad weevils. The males have these pretty big, like, front femurs. They kind of look like they got big old buff arms. But both species are only here in Florida, and they feed on. Okay, there's no pictures of it here. They feed inside the strobolus of this plant, which is kind of like a cone. So it'll look like this, and the beetles are inside the male cones. So you have to wait for those cones to open, and they apparently reproduce in the winter down here. When I first moved here, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go check all these, and all of the things were either gone or super tightly closed. But the friend of mine that I'm going to visit is, nobody's surprise, also an entomologist. He found some today, and so that means we're gonna load up this weekend on these things. So the idea is we're gonna go to these cones, we're gonna hold them over like a white pan, and then just tap them, and then the weevils are all gonna fall out. That's the idea, like, in theory at least. But there's Slocini, which is this one that has kind of the red shoulders. This is native to Florida and only found in Florida. But then the other Rhopalatria, the Furfuracea, this is a Mexican thing that kind of has been introduced into Florida. So it is very possible that we get both. They do co-occur, but the ones that he has found so far have only been the Florida native one, which is obviously the cooler one to get, right? The thing that's only known from here. So this is the big target, and then maybe we'll get the other thing as well. So that is my plan of my weekend. Oh, thanks, Tortilla. Besser, first pre-chat chats. Hello. The most people you have is houseplants. Yes. But yeah, so that's the plan. That's the plan for this weekend. So no weekend stream, I don't think, unless something happens where I come back early. But yes, hopefully Monday we will also have those weevils to talk about and maybe look at and maybe mount up a few. But we're going to go ahead and dive in to our regular pre-chat-chats programming of looking at different beetle families. And we've got some interesting stuff today. Not that we don't always have interesting stuff, but we do have a couple of families that I quite enjoy. So that always makes it interesting and fun. So this first thing here, maybe not that specimen. This one's a little bit better. These are Ishaliids. And this is a relatively new family. They used to be classified as something else, which we haven't talked about yet, so it won't matter if I tell you what it is or not. But these guys are kind of weird. Get it in focus here. So it looks fairly normal. You know, that pronotum is a little bit weird because it's kind of deeply incised. But if we take a look at one from the side, the elytra are like really, really sharp Um, there's this like giant wedge. It might be hard to see. I'm actually not sure how well this is translating. That looks pretty good. Yeah. So you can see it there. There's like this very sharp delineation where the elytra starts down here, it goes like straight up into this ridge, and then it goes across the back. Um, these are called broad hipped flower beetles, and have been their own family only since like 2009. Is that right? Tenebrionoid. Yeah, it must have been 2009 where they moved them out of the group that they were in into being their own family. So these ones do follow. We're still in the tenebrionoids. So for those of you who have been here for a while, you've heard me talk about this group a lot. But for WN Besser or anyone else who is new here, we are in the grouping of beetles that are related to darkling beetles or to like mealworms. If you're familiar with mealworms from like feeding your gecko or going fishing or whatever, that's a darkling beetle. We are talking about things that are in the same superfamily, so all sort of like cousins of that group. And one of the things that that group generally, not always, because we're going to look at something different in a second, has about them is that they have a 5-5-4 tarsal formula, meaning that on the front leg there are 5 little foot segments. On the middle leg there are also 5 segments, and then on the hind leg there are only 4 little toes. So that is something that is relatively consistent across the group, but certainly not all the way. How are mealworms related? They're cousins of this thing, and like basically siblings with something like this. If you leave mealworms long enough, or you take care of them properly, they turn into beetles. They're beetle larvae, which a lot of people I feel don't necessarily know that. Um, but yeah, that's like a very common one that I think people have exposure to at least kind of give you an idea of what sorts of things we're talking about. But this one is a desert dwelling thing. This group gets particularly diverse in deserts because they have a lot of um, adaptations to like dealing with lack of water. But yeah, mealworms are a beetle larva that will turn into a beetle eventually. Um, one, one of the most common posts that I see in like insect ID groups are like, "Oh, I found this weird thing in my lizard's tank. Like, what is it?" And it's just the pupa, so like the intermediate stage of going from that larva to the actual adult beetle. The pupa looks kind of weird. It's like white and wiggly. Um, and yeah, it's just like it's like the cocoon stage of a butterfly. There's still a pupa in there, and yeah, people just like, if you lose a mealworm in the tank and then it still has the ability to continue developing, it will eventually turn into a beetle. They're pretty easy to raise as well and like go through that whole process. I used to have a very very large mealworm farm at one point in the past, but I don't anymore. But I've been thinking about bringing it back. Been thinking about bringing it back because I think that would be a fun stream thing to kind of keep tabs on. But you can also always use mealworms. They will not go unused in this house. But yeah, so here's my other Ishaliad specimen. These are both from the same like collecting event. The same person gave these to me, but there's like that very clear ridge on the elytra. So like right here. And that's what makes them the broad hipped flower beetles, because that edge on the elytra that is very very tall is sort of the part that would usually be right along the bottom and like right along the outside of the elytra, and so it's extremely widened, which is why they call it, which is why that this family is called that. These were pretty cool. Shout out to Rod Rude, a friend of mine who sent me these from Washington. I've never collected this family on my own, so someday I would like to fill out the collection, but I do have representatives. Um, obviously you guys know that because we just looked at them. Um, but you'll also notice that they've been somewhat recently taxonomically added, because I have my, oh god, it's not gonna like this, I don't think. There it is. My handwritten, that still totally looks blank, doesn't it? Kind of, there it goes. My handwritten family label. Everything else in here is typed, but after I made this collection where it sat, a lot of these boxes are just empty, where I have spots for things when I get them, but I don't have them yet. Um, I had to add a new box when Ishaliads got separated out. But like the box right above Ishaliads, here the Chalcodryads. This is another family that like I won't have anytime soon, because Chalcodryidae is a family that's only found in New Zealand. So I would have to do some pretty serious trading or collecting to get one of these. But I have a space for when one shows up. And all things considered, I'm doing, I think, pretty well on most things. You know, I've had a lot of stuff to show you guys, but this is a pretty full drawer. I've done pretty well on tenebrionoids, but some of the other drawers are a little bit more sparse. But that's cool. That's there. We aren't going to go over tenebrionids again. That's like we've looked at that same tenebrionid quite a few times, so I think we're going to skip over that. Prostomids, we don't. We do. Oh, hell yeah. I forgot about this. So, over the summer, I was teaching a beetle ID class down in southern Arizona, and I ended up getting a couple of new things for the collection, including a new family. We didn't collect it while we were there. This was another one of those things that somebody gave it to me while we were there. But it is in this drawer, or in this little box somewhere. I have to read all my labels here. Sandids, Clambids, Macrypid. Well, that's a real pain in the ass if I can't find that. Because that's a good beetle. Maybe we'll have to come back to this. kind of frustrating though, because I know I had it. Lightly concerning, but not that concerning. Um, I did bring another box of stuff from Arizona back, so it's probably in there, but I actually don't know offhand where that is at the moment. So I'll have to check back in. A lot of this stuff is here, we'll cut over. Sorry, you're looking at nothing. This is stuff. A lot of this still needs to be labeled. Some of them have like handwritten labels, and I have all this stuff typed out and ready to go. I just need to put it on specimens. So a lot of stuff we've already covered in here, but if we, I know this is going off script. I know this is not usually what we do for pre-chat chats, but that's a cool thing. And now I'm a bit annoyed that I don't have the thing that I was going to show you. So we're going to look at something else. This is a Rhapidophorid, which is the scientific name for camel crickets. So this is an orthopteran, so related to grasshoppers and crickets. And they tend to have this like pretty humped back appearance. We're looking down at the top, but it's very domed, and we'll be able to see that when I turn it the other way. But they have stupid long antennae to help them sense. They usually live in kind of darker, damp environments. People will often find these in basements, or yeah, there it is. I just beat Liz to that punch. Yeah, basements a lot, or under like wood and stuff outside. I found this one under a log up at Barfoot Park in southern Arizona, which is at like 8,200 feet. Like it's pretty high elevation. And I do not collect Orthoptera. This was like this is kind of neat. Like, let me pick this one up. Because if we turn it to the side, let's see if I can get it to barely come into view. So here you can see the humped back appearance. So it's going through right behind the pronotum. The head's kind of tucked under, and then it curves up. Saw my first one of those just a few months ago, under a bridge over water. That tracks. That totally tracks. I found this one under a log, and I was like, oh, hey, get out of here. Like, you're in the way of my beetles. But then I took a little bit closer of a look at it, and brace yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Look at those back legs. Isn't that the craziest shit you've ever seen? They do have long jumping back legs. They're Orthoptera. That's like what they're known for. But this one in particular has the super big hind femur with 2 giant spikes on it. And then you have the tibia here, which is usually that long, like, straight piece that actually gives the power to do the jumping. But instead, these guys have this insane hook and like this really curvy leg. And this was so weird. I had never seen anything like this before. And so I brought it, I collected it, I brought it back. Um, and we were looking at it and we're like, man, it's crazy. And it's symmetrical. That's the thing. You can see it in the back there. The other leg looks exactly the same. Because if I were to see something with this, like, this dramatic of a bend, I would think that something like fell on the leg or something otherwise interfered while this thing was soft. So when it was teneral, like just after it had molted or something like that, maybe a stick or a rock fell on it and made this like really kind of crazy bend. And then when that set, that eventually hardened into this. But it's on both legs and it's exactly the same on both legs. So that doesn't really work. And we did end up finding a couple more throughout the week. But yes, quick grasshopper intermission or rhaphidophorids, which are the camel crickets. Quick camel cricket intermission here during the beetle ID stream because that thing is just so wild. So I am simply going to put this back and we will return to the regularly scheduled programming. I'm annoyed about this other beetle though, because I know I brought it. I know I got it, and it wasn't one we collected while we were there. We got it from somebody at the course, so there was labels on it. And I'm just not seeing any typed labels in here. And it is very frustrating. I did have a smaller unit tray, and if this is it, I will be very, very happy. But it's not. That is an empty box. Anyway, we'll have to circle back to that. We'll have to circle back to that once I find it. Which hopefully will be like later tonight in a very obvious spot where I was like, oh, okay. But anyways, moving on. This is a synchroid, or I think the common name is just synchroid bark beetles. And the first thing that you're going to think is, boy, does that look like a click beetle. Because that is, in fact, everybody's first response to these guys. We haven't gotten to Elateroidea yet, so click beetles are the family Elateridae. And the way that I remembered that, and the way that I've always thought about that, is that click beetles are known for their ability to like click and, jump. And Elateridae, they are elated, so they're jumping for joy. So when they click, they're happy, which is not the case. It's a defense mechanism, blah, blah, blah. But when I was like trying to remember what families included what groups, Elaterids were elated, so they were jumping. And that's how I remembered that. Synchroids don't have a fun thing. It's just like this one dude. I think there are maybe 3. Sorry for the midstream Google here. How many species are there? Only 2. There's 2 species in 2 genera in our area, and a whopping 8 species in 3 genera worldwide. So we have a quarter of the world's fauna in the US, which is kind of neat. But this looks and like ecologically is very, very similar to a click beetle. These are underbark. They will overwinter oftentimes with click beetles. And so they also have that sort of bell shaped, or that like really wide on the base and narrowing to the top pronotum. So that little piece here just behind the head, that little neck plate. That bell shape is pretty common along within elaterids. And so if you see this, you might think click beetle. 'Tis no click beetle though. And the reason we know it's not a click beetle is because of Tortilla's favorite activity, counting tarsi. So we got a front leg up here. Yeah, Rocksters. It's like a pop quiz every week, but you guys should know what's coming by now. Front foot, not too bad. This is a pretty easy 5. So here you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On a middle leg, we have a very long one, but then a pretty easy 2 through 5. So this one's kind of crazy. This whole section from here down is 1. This is 2, 3, 4, and 5. And another thing that is useful for ID on these guys, I have no idea how well this is going to show up. If we take a look at the spurs on the tibia, so these little spikes here right at the end, this is a bit of a confusing spot, but we're looking at this piece right here. I'm going to try and bring that into focus so we can see the thing that I'm talking about, but I don't know how well it's going to work because this is already at max zoom. Okay. Maybe too small. Let me see if there's a better one. Maybe one that's easier. Okay, maybe that one. So we're now trying to look at this piece right here. I'm sorry, Dan. I'm doing my best. Also, hello. Okay, you can kind of see it. That's the best I'm going to do. Do you see how the outside edge of that spur is like sawtoothed? Maybe. Please. If you can't, I think you're gonna have to just trust me on this one. Um, but that's about the best view that I think I can get of that. And that is the quote cellulate tibial spur. So in click beetles, that spur, you'll trust me, guys. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the faith. Um, the spurs on click beetle legs are smooth, and I'm pretty sure I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is consistent across all of click beetles. These guys have this little sawtoothed edge to them. So that's one way that you could tell that it's not a click beetle. It's got these little sawtooth spurs. But then the last way, and again going back to what we were just doing before this, counting hind tarsi. What do we got? How many we got here? Tortilla, your bonus check relies on this. Or anybody. Anybody can answer. This is not a trick question. Yeah! Working a job that doesn't give minutes like 10 minutes. I see. Roxers nailed it. This one is 4. So itty bitty baby claws here at the end. Much smaller than what we've seen before. And then segment 1, super long. And then 2, 3, 4 with the claws there at the end. So, how does that help us tell that this is not a click beetle? Well, click beetles, even though we haven't gotten there yet, this will be a very impressive thing if you remember this in the next couple of weeks or months or however long it takes us to get to elateroids. Click beetles have 555 tarsi. So this was 554, which makes sense because it's a tenebrionoid. Click beetles are elateroids, and they will all have 555. So, counting toes, counting tarsal segments, I know it's a bane of some people's existence. It is quite tough. It is even tougher trying to do it through a screen on a specimen that you're not like actually seeing. So I do fully admit that this is a difficult thing to be asking. But for as much as we talk about it, I'm just trying to reinforce that like this is a really important thing that we look at in beetles all the time. And if you're just doing a quick ID, one of the first things that I do if I like don't know what something is I'll count the tarsi, because that will chunk off like really big groups of stuff. If I, undetermined little beetle or whatever, I'm like 554, okay, it's like probably it's an ebrionoid. I'll flip it around, I'll check a bunch of other things and go from there. But yeah, tarsal segmentation, the number of segments on each foot is for as like tiny of a character as it is, disproportionately important in doing beetle ID like this. Like I said, it's one of the first things that I will always look at when trying to identify a mystery beetle. I don't know if I've showed you guys these yet. Um, on some of these things that we're working on, I have these little green tags. Mop, what's up? So you have like we have the normal data label that tells you like where and when and who the thing got collected by. And then at the very bottom, we have the identification label. In the middle, we have these little green labels that have a number on them. And I don't know how or if that is focusing. There it is. Okay. These are my database labels. So, a big part of collections is making what you have known to other people. It's really cool if I know that I have this. It's even cooler if everyone in the world knows that I have this. And for whatever reason, the individual that I have or the location that I have is something unique. That's what insect collections are, and that's like what's at the crux of museum work is people will ask around and be like, hey, do you have any of X or Y species from this locality? And you go, you check through the specimens. If you do, you box them up, you mail them off, and then you are basically doing a library, but for bugs. That's like the best way that I've found to describe my job is that instead of books, we have bugs that need to be maintained, cataloged, organized, and that people can borrow and then send back to us. So that's like a whole side of entomology that in like museums that most people don't know. But the new, I wouldn't say new because it started in like the late 90s. The kind of desirable end goal now for specimens is having the data available online. That way, anyone in the world can go to GBIF, which is the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. And that is a data aggregator that pulls in information from all of these different museum databases. And so if you're searching for X, Y, or Z species from this locality, you can search for that in there and it will tell you, yeah, Museum 1 has 5 specimens, Museum 2 has 400, Museum 3 only has 1. And if you're working on that group, you can then be like, oh, Museum B has the most of what I'm looking for. Let me reach out to them. They will send me stuff, and then that's how the project works. A big kind of blind spot for a long time in the entomology community has been personal collections. A lot of museum folks and a lot of entomologists in general have massive personal collections. Mine in total, I would say we're getting close to 10,000 specimens in like 50 some drawers. I know I spun this the other day, but like these are all of my empties right now, and they're sitting on top of cabinets that are full. And I've got 3 cabinets, so there's a lot going on. I have a modest size collection. But anyway, a lot of data is here that is not anywhere else. Localities that I've collected in because I have a group of interests that a lot of people don't really like or aren't really that interested in. So I have a lot of really cool records. I've gotten lucky and done a lot of trading with people, so I have a lot of diversity in one collection. So that way, if someone's looking for like, oh, I need I need some species or some genus of ground beetle from Arizona, when they search these data portals, my collection comes up alongside like the Smithsonian and where I currently work and Arizona State where I used to work. All of their collections are on there, but I have a portal for mine as well. And it's pretty fun that I've had a couple of people reach out to me specifically. They're like, "Hey, we need that thing that you've got. Are you able to like personally send us a loan?" Um, and it's the whole point. It's the whole point is getting the information out there, and like I want my bugs to be helpful to whoever. Um, and so on a lot of the stuff in the Synoptic collection, so what we've been going through to like pull out and look at these things, I have the green labels on as well, which are again my database labels. So that means that that full specimen data is up online somewhere that people can like find. The normal stuff like this, come on, influencer hand the Beatles. There we go. So stuff like this doesn't have it on yet. And some of it probably won't. Um, a big limiting factor in specimen digitization, whether at like the actual museum level or on the personal level, is just time. So when I started digitizing everything. All my leaf beetles, all my longhorn beetles, all my ground beetles, all my scarabs, everything. And it takes a while. It takes a while to retype like your exact locality of where and when you found something, and then georeference it, assign the tag number, cut out that new tag, put it on, put it back. So it's a process. And pretty quickly I was like, I'm just going to digitize my ground beetles. That's the resource that I have that is going to be the most useful to other people, because again, it's a group that not a ton of people collect and I've gotten pretty good diversity with. So my ground beetles, as I identify them, I will digitize and incorporate them. Problem: I couldn't find my digitization labels after the move. Solution: I found them the other day. So I haven't been able to, or and I haven't been digitizing stuff recently. So I have a pretty big backlog of things that I'm able to move things. Blame the move. Yeah, Tortilla, I had all of my stuff in the same place for 5 years, and then I had to box it all up and then put it somewhere else. And so I haven't like figured out my normal spot to put these things yet. But also there's a couple of boxes that I haven't, truthfully, have not unpacked yet. And that's because my office at ASU was pretty big, and I did a lot of the furnishing of the equipment for that myself. Um, so you've seen some of my giant forcep collection. You've seen um, a subset of my library, my little book section. But my new job provides all of that stuff. I was providing it for my benefit while I was there. I took it with me because it was my stuff. But I don't have as big of an office at home to set up everything the way I had it in my old office at work. And now my new office at work provides me with things where I'm like, hey, I need this type of forceps, or like, hey, I need more label paper or whatever. They get it for me, which is great. By they get it for me, I mean I order it because I'm supposed to be in charge of things like that. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff that I needed and had out and accessible at my last job that I haven't felt the need to, or like had the reason to unpack yet. So rather than just like put it out for kind of putting it out's sake, I've left some of those boxes closed up. But I did find my digitization labels the other day, so I'm hopefully going to get back on that grind. Um, that won't be something that I'll be able to do on stream because that's like full on Dock City down to my down to my exact GPS location. Um, but yes, something that I would need to, or something that I need to get back in the habit of doing. But there's also a little space for notes on there. And so all the stuff in the Synoptic collection is digitized. It's all information on there. And there's a note in the notes field that says, like, part of the blah, blah, blah Synoptic set. So if, in a good long time, I die, and someone's looking for this, they're like, I can't find it in this collection anywhere. There's like 4 drawers that are very clearly labeled as the Synoptic set. So if they're looking for one of those things, I can, they'll know where it is. Everything else is just separated and like organized by taxonomy. So if they're looking for a specific subfamily or specific genus of ground beetle, it should be easy to find if you know anything about ground beetles. But I'm only really digitizing my ground beetle stuff right now, unless it's something that needs to go into the Synoptic. And not all of the Synoptic has been digitized yet, because I've gotten a couple of new pickups, and there are a couple things that I added before I had the digitizing scheme. So, anyway, that's an aside. That's not really what we were supposed to be doing tonight, but another part that is like another aspect of the collection is the online management of it. Is that stuff worth selling, or is it too good to let go? It's too good to let go. Because while I could be in this job forever, I'm not guaranteed to be. Not that I'm going to get fired, but maybe something else comes along and I would need my own supplies again. Or I run out of something, or I break a pair of forceps here at home. I have backups of things. And a lot of the books that that I haven't unpacked yet are fucking expensive. Really expensive books, but we have copies of it at work, so I don't need it as much. So yeah, we're not going to be having an Evan garage sale at any point. I do unfortunately have to hang on to this stuff, but I should probably at least go through the boxes and like remember all of the things that I have before storing them away long term. Okay. Anyway, back to beetles. We are in the tenebrianoids still, and our next group is the family Edemeridae, or Odemeridae, depending. I've always said Edemerids, Oedemeridae. And these are known as the false blister beetles. Write that down somewhere when you do. Yeah, I'll go through the box. I'll tape labels on the side and figure out what I've got. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so Edemerids, false blister beetles. We haven't gotten to real blister beetles yet, but they're next. So we'll definitely get there tonight. Remember that? Forget? Yeah, totally. Thanks, Tortilla. Yeah, so these are false blister beetles. They do not produce the cantharidin, which is the like chemical that actual blister beetles produce, that actual blister beetles do, that like cause the blisters. I think there are some that can. Feeding livestock don't die. Aye, aye, Captain. um, so regular blister beetles have a chemical in their blood or in their hemolymph that's called cantharidin that can cause blisters on contact, which is why they get the name blister beetles. These are false blister beetles. They look, you know, relatively similar. I can definitely see where you could get some confusion happening. But in general, these ones are non-toxic, not one you have to worry about handling. This is another one of those groups that's kind of tricky to identify. Um, there's not like one good thing that points you to this group. They are uh they have the tenebrionoid tarsal formula, so it's 554. We're not going to go through the process of counting again. Um, again, source, dude, just trust me. Um, so that narrows it down a little bit. The best thing that I look for, and I don't know if this is true for all of them, is that the pronotum is wider towards the head and narrows at the base. And that's to kind of distinguish from other, from the actual blister beetles, where the pronotum is like very, very straight all the way through, or narrowed at the top, wider at the bottom. So this one here, if we just flip around a little bit, and here's a side by side. Here's another tenebrion or another Edemerid. It does that. Yes, it sure do. It sure do. So again, it's narrow closer to the wings and wider up towards the head. That in combination with the 554 tarsal formula are like the two easy um dorsal characters, so the ones that we can see from the top that I look at. There is one more thing here that, again, is not unique to this group, but in combination with these other things, I think is, and I have no idea if we're going to be able to see it, because low key, it's an annoying character. Um, that's actually remarkable. Quite possibly the best view of that I could have asked for. So repinning just to put us in the right space here, and I will zoom out to orient you to what we're actually looking at. So we're looking at the side of the beetle now. Um, we're going to be looking under the front leg. And the thing that we are looking for, and the character that what we call it, is that the front coxal cavities are open behind. Follow with me here. The coxa is that segment of the leg that attaches directly to the body. And typically, with insects, they have all of these like interlocking pieces that kind of fit together to make the underside. In this group, and again, in others, but in combination, the underside of the front leg doesn't have a plate that connects to the sides. So we are going to so we're moving around a lot, but so we're at the angle. We're going to zoom in, and that is in fact all the way in. But you can see here how this flat piece just kind of ends, and it doesn't connect through under the coxa, which is right here. So that piece just stops. It's peach fuzz. It's definitely peach fuzz. So again, the thing we're talking about right now is this plate right here doesn't like swoop directly behind the coxa and connect. There is a more definitive angle. Yeah, that's pretty good. Bring it back over here. So right there, under the legs, there's kind of just a space. You're looking at like the light membrane that attaches further up in the body, but there's no plate there that connects all the way around. For an example of one that would connect all the way around, I think Passamacus does. Hard stop on the shoulder. Yeah. So this is a completely different group of beetles. This is a ground beetle again. But just for reference of like what a closed one, like closed behind, looks like. It's like a hard in between. So again, we're looking behind the front leg. And you can see those two pieces that are coming together directly under the coxa. So this is what it would look like if it had closed procoxal cavities. The other one has open, and they're full armor. Yes, that's a really good way to put it. It is like fully plated in there, and there's no gaps. The Edemerid, the false blister beetle that we were just looking at, kind of has a gap under his chest plate and his armor that an arrow is going to get through. So that's what the open, well, that was closed, but that is the comparison to the open procoxal cavity that we were looking at on the other beetle. And that's one of those things that is very hard to understand if you haven't seen both. The first time going through a key, you're like, oh yeah, open procoxal cavities. Like, what the fuck does that mean? Versus closed. And like, until you see a really nice example of one or the other, it's really hard to like understand all of these like very distinct anatomical terms. And that's another like really great reason why I have this collection is if I'm going through a key and I'm unsure which way to go, if there's something that I'm not familiar with, I can go down the path of like, oh yeah, the key splits here. This one has it open. These groups up here have it open. These groups down here have it closed. If I have individuals of both of those things that have been like definitively identified by an expert, I can go and check, be like, oh, okay, this one is supposed to have it open. This one is supposed to have it closed. Let me compare them and see like where the differences are that I can spot between them. And again, going back to the library analogy, it's a reference book. You have the book there for you to go and check out whenever you need it to get whatever information that you need out of it. And so if I got to the thing that separated Edomerids and the key, and I had like a mystery beetle that was an Edomerid, but I wasn't sure, I could come now to this collection. I could pull these guys out and look and be like, oh, okay, yeah, right. That's what that means. And that can go like really far down. You know, it's at the family level. It's great. It's super helpful. But then it's the same thing. It's just like, oh, yeah, we have members of that family. What subfamily, like, how does the subfamily key work? How does the tribe key work? How does the genus key work? And so the more representation you have in your collection, the better of a reference that you have, because you can see all of these differences and how they play out um, on like what different things look like. Now this one is a little bit harder to see it on because the legs are not as far forward, but we are still able to see it. Right there behind those little front legs, there's just like that open space. There's not that other piece of exoskeleton that kind of connects. Representation matters. Hell yeah, Tortilla. In all aspects. I'm scared to let you guys see me do this time. After the last time, you guys drowned me. But yes, so that's Edomerids. We don't have like a just don't chug it again. Well, as long as you guys don't redeem 25 drinks again, I don't think that's going to be possible because I learned how to put a timer on it. I think it went out, Space Camp. I'm pretty sure it did. Who are you gonna sue? Hopefully not me, your favorite streamer. Just kidding. That's not me. Yeah, the live notification went off in the bug cord. It's there. Discord and Twitch both went out. Okay, thanks, Tortilla. I'm sure Mom Tomology likes you as well. She thinks chat's like the funniest thing. She's like, I never understand how you can read them all. They're always typing so fast. Anyway, okay. That was Edamerids, the false blister beetles. Now we are going to move into Meloids, the actual blister beetles. Chat's going so fast that nobody will see me say that you hate slugs. That's a shame, Tortilla. Slugs kind of rule. I gotta. If you'll please bear with me for 1 second. Oh, I didn't finish cutting this, but I got a slug sticker when we were in Portland. So it's on this like sticky magnet back right now, and I didn't want to gunk up my good scissors cutting up these things. So I still have to cut the other ones of these out, and I might just do it on like a craft mat with a X-Acto instead. But yeah, I got that little slug sticker when I was out with Shruti and Lucas, and then I was like, that's like cheap enough, but also Portland enough to have that be the thing that I take back to my coworkers. So I bought like 5 of those slug stickers and gave them out. I've stood on them in bare feet too many times by accident. It was traumatizing. We used to have like the giant leopard slugs a lot when I was growing up. We had a garden and they like really liked our pepper plants for whatever reason. And so we had we would put out like pie plates full of beer, and apparently slugs like beer for whatever reason, and they drowned in it, which like kind of sucks now. I don't want to drown slugs anymore. But that's what we did before as like pest control for our pepper plants. Again, I would definitely not do that now, but Discord. No one to sue but yourself, Space Camp. Genji, hello, welcome back. We are just wrapping up the false blister beetles, and we are about to look into the regular blister beetles. So we will start with the big flashy one, and we will work our way down to some of the more niche things. But this is a Meloid. This is a blister beetle. Very famous UK legal case about a slug in a ginger beer bottle. Interesting. This one's kind of big, so we'll have to see if it gets full in focus here. Very famous in the legal world. Interesting. So this is Lyta Magister. It's one of like these desert blister beetles, and it's usually found on Encelia, which is like I don't know how to describe Encelia. It's a desert plant. But Meloids will oftentimes have this textured elytra, not necessarily like this, but a lot of them will have textured elytra of some sort. They have a big head, a narrow pronotum, and then big elytra again. So, unlike the last one where the head or the top of the pronotum close to the head was widest, in these it kind of tapers on both ends. So it's narrow right behind the head, and it's narrow when it attaches to the elytra. But in the middle, it can kind of do a couple of different things. Right here, this one's kind of like angulate on the sides. Got a big head, little arms. Sick Meet the Robinsons reference in the year 2025. Incredible. Fantastic movie. Master. Yeah, it's also called that, but it's Lyta Magister, Magister. Master Blister Beetle feels weird, but my youngest looks character looks like the main character. Oh, it's a great movie. I definitely felt like that one was um like not appreciated as much as it should have been. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Good movie though. So, Meloids are also 554. Source was a law student. Does that mean that you're now like a law professional, or did you switch career paths, Starberry? The was that you dropped out. Ah, I see. No shame in that. No shame in that. Criminology. Okay. You're like you're in the same boat. You're adjacent, you're next door, you're down the hall. And I assume, I guess I don't really know for sure, but I assume that Starberry Courts is not your legal name. But I would let somebody named Starberry Courts represent me in a court of law. So the law A level. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, Starberry Courts sounds like a one of those like 1-800 judges that you like see on a billboard. Like in an accident, call Starberry Courts. Anyway, am I having a moth? No, just beetles tonight. So Janji, on Wednesdays, we do this before going to chat chats on Alveus. And so we always kind of just work through beetles on Wednesdays. Um, I don't have many moths, but if you come back on Monday next week, I'll make sure to have something for you. Is this the one? What do you got? What do you got, Tortilla? Yep, that's the one. Oh, it is called the Master Blister Beetle. Well, shit, Space Camp, you were correct, even if you didn't know it. Okay, so Meloids 554. So we're looking at the hind leg right now. There are pretty clearly only 4 tarsi, but one of the Meloid characters is also quite visible here. Does anyone have an idea of what it could be? Washing dishes. Nice. Anything sticking out to you guys about this hind foot here? The comb? No, I see what you're saying. Under those first two segments, that's all hair. So not. What about the toes, Tortilla? Yes. Not three toes. But yes, they're split. So this is oh, that's what you meant, granola. Okay, I see. You guys can stop clapping. I haven't been on this week much, but I know about that. But yeah, so each one of the tarsal claws is split and has this like blade under it. Because it's split very far down, so it almost doesn't look like it is uh the same claw. It looks almost like it's a separate structure. Very easy to see on this bigger one. A little bit harder to see on some of these smaller guys. But yeah, so that blade, that really kind of thin piece underneath the tarsal claw is one of the key defining characters for Meloids. Here's another one. So this one, granola, is combed and has the extra little piece underneath. So that's why I didn't mean combed, at least in the same way that I thought you meant it. Because some of these do have actual combed claws, but the thing that we specifically look for with Meloids is that like very split claw, or it says like with tarsal claws with ventral blade, I think is how the actual key is worded. Um, Again, this is already all the way zoomed in. Um, but on this one, it's hard to see, but like at the base, it is completely under the claw. So it's like the actual claw itself is not split. There's just like this extra thing underneath. Um, and so this group is called blister beetles. Like I said earlier, because they have a chemical in their hemolymph, which is the insect equivalent to blood, um, that will leave blisters if it comes in contact with your skin. It's quite unpleasant. And this is another one that people uh, animal care folks specifically get worked up over because cantharidin, if you eat it, is toxic. And so there have been cases of things like horses eating hay that have blister beetles in them, and then the horses kicking it. So definitely something to be careful and to like be aware of. Um, we did used to eat it on purpose. So if any of you have ever heard of Spanish fly, that was basically packaged cantharidin that was used for Male enhancement. You would take it, and it would cause swelling in the nether region. And so yeah, it was like an aphrodisiac thing to get the people going back in the day. Um, we don't sell it anymore, but it was called Spanish fly, even though it came from a beetle. Another cool thing about some members of this group are that they feed on nectar. And so not only does this beetle have mandibles that are pretty well visible, but there's also this like very, very long tongue that's coming out the bottom. So those are part of the palps. Let me flip it over. It might be easier to gauge what's going on underneath here. Valerie, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. Spanish beetle doesn't have the same ring to it. So true. But yeah, so this really long piece that's kind of coming down within the antenna is tongue, essentially, to help them like lap up and pick up nectar. The eyes are so cool on all of these. It's always nice when you get a nice one in focus, but very, very cool to see all the little cells and little bits in there. Ophelia, hello, you made it. We won't be on for too much longer. I'll take a break probably in like 10 or 15 minutes, but yeah, so there's a pretty interesting diversity of these guys. The ones with the super long tongues are typically on flowers. A lot of them are typically found on flowers. But you have a pretty wide body diversity. I know Space Camp asked about these the other day, and I didn't bring them. But the like really crazy abdomen beetles that we had that we are currently like freeze drying, those were blister beetles as well. And here's a somewhat bulbous one. But then we've also got this guy, which you guys I think will like. This is that same box of Arizona stuff again. Just checking to see what we've got in here that we can look at. Those two should be good. So, like we were saying earlier, we have those really inflated abdomen ones. And this one is closely related to that, but not nearly as bulbous. But I think this one looks like a brain. It has those little fissures and textures bits in the elytra. And I just think this one is pretty cool. Because that is actual pattern. Like they have different. Looks like a cut open red cabbage. I can totally see it. But yeah, so this one has sort of inflated elytra. They're kind of bulbous underneath. And you can still see those blades under the tarsi as well. Looks like he's hugging the pin. Correct. He's holding on. But yeah, so this is another blister beetle. Like I said, kind of the slightly more bulbous form factor. And again, from the top, they have that sort of characteristic big head, little pronotum, much bigger elytra. That you're seeing here. And then you have this other genus that is called Epicauda. And this is maybe one of my favorite Epicauda species that I've ever found. Looks Arctic. Not quite. Not quite Arctic. We got this one. This is a Southern Arizona specialty. Afton, hello. I missed your stream. How was your grilled cheese? Someone took a picture in grayscale. It does look like a sunflower seed. I agree with that. But very cool pattern on this one. If we go all the way in, it's pretty cool because the stripes, the solid ones, are actually raised. So all of the striping are scales, which are a modified type of hair. So there's the scales scattered in the middle. They are very condensed up on the ridges, but it's not just scales that's making that difference. Like those ridges are actually raised. So it's bumpy. So it's bumpy as well as stripy. So yeah, that's a pretty good view of it, where you can see the ridge is raised, the lower parts are less densely scaled. But yeah, this is a whole different texture thing going on here. You see. Probably can't see it at all on a tree. Yeah, you would think this would be pretty good camo for a couple of like really straight tree barks. This thing is on mesquite in Arizona, and we were just finding them running around on the ground and also just like on whatever plants were nearby. But not a lot of desert plants look like this, and not many trees either in the desert. So, kind of a very odd. I agree, a very odd camo pattern for where it is. There are some even crazier blister beetles that I have never personally seen or collected one of these. But allow me to pull up. Oh, come on. Why are these pictures so small? Perfect wrong skin in the lobby. Bird poop mimic. I could see that, Roxers. It's very uniform if it were trying to be a bird poop mimic. Usually those are like splotchy and not as condensed, but I could see it. Okay. We're going to. No, I don't want that. I want this. Aha. Okay, so this is Societes auriculata. This is a Central American meloid that gets up into Texas sometimes. Big, black and orange, but look at these mandibles on this thing. Honkin'. Real big chompers, really like big head, small eyes. This thing is like definitely on my most wanted of US insects, but it's not that reliably found because they're only known from like very 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 South Texas. And so a lot of that stuff is primarily Mexican that may or may not actually be established in the US, but stuff just kind of gets found across the border sometimes. So this very cool. And then we can also potentially look at palm finds these things. So Cystiodesmus, this is the inflated beetle. Big, shiny things. Really crazy elytra on this one. And then also in the palm finds, which are just kind of known as having these really remarkable abdomens, are things like Megatra. So this is the thing that we currently have freeze drying downstairs, is something like this. And the reason we're trying to do it in the freezer is because when you just leave these out to dry, they deflate a whole lot. And I tried drying them quickly in like an oven, and that just made them shrivel up worse. So the idea with the freezer is to just let the cold very, very, or the liquid like very, very, very slowly evaporate out in the freezer. So you don't have this like super quick deflation of this abdomen. And I pinned them on stream a couple months ago. And they're still in the freezer. And we are going to open them in January of 2026. So it's gonna wait another 3 weeks, and then we will reevaluate and see maybe if I put it back in the freezer again. I think everything's supposed to be. Yeah. Carved pumpkin. Bugs have no borders. That's very true, Granola. That's very true. Time capsule. Do you have it in something where you can tell the status of them? Yeah. Well, they're not really in anything. They are on a piece of styrofoam in the door of my freezer. So every time that I open it up to like get ice or frozen waffles or whatever that I have in the freezer, I can see the beetles. Yeah, so they're just kind of hanging out in there. So I see them all the time. I know how the experiment's going, but we will do a review come January. Do you have to be careful in pinning them as their hemolymph is what toxic? So, in theory, yes. I'm not. I have only reacted poorly to a blister beetle one time. And that was when I accidentally squished it on the back of my leg. I just felt something crawling back there, and I kind of like went to swipe it off, and in fact, it squished a big blister beetle on the back of my leg, and sure enough, I got blisters on the back of my leg, if you can imagine that. Tisk, 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 roach. You in space camp were ignoring me the same way. Or 600 cups of onions. Yeah, tortilla. Those are in there too. We're running low. We're running low on onions. So I think this week when I go down to Orlando, there's a Costco on the way back that I'll stop at and get onions again to redo the process. Um, anyway, that's the only time that I have gotten blisters from blister beetles, and I have handled many. Um, the way that they typically uh, release it, um, I you guys have seen my Instagram before, so it's not a big deal. I don't care. But this is a Pyrota acurstiana, and this is not dead. This is playing dead because I poked it. And so the way that they actually distribute the chemicals is through this process called reflex bleeding. So they basically, at their joints, so you can see it here and here and here, and this little spot over here is from the other leg, and they basically crack the membrane at what would be their elbows. And this is the chemical that comes out of the hemolymph. So this is all hemolymph pooling up here. If I were to have picked this up, um, I probably would have gotten blisters on my hands. Or if I would have like taken this and rubbed it on my arm, I would have gotten blisters. But they can only reflex bleed out of the underside. So if I was very careful and picked this up like from the top, like just holding the elytra on the sides of the body, I wouldn't have to worry about the cantharidin at all. But this is what it looks like coming out as they like crack their joints, and then this little ball of uh, essentially blood comes out. Is that why ladybugs smell like that when they spit at you? Grasshoppers too. Um, it's different, but yes, ladybugs do reflex bleed. Grasshoppers are spit. Grasshoppers will like regurgitate on you. As far as I know, grasshoppers don't reflex bleed, but ladybugs are definitely another family that does that. In blister beetles, it is toxic. That's why they're called blister beetles. That chemical causes blisters on your skin. Ladybugs, it tastes bad. It's like really really bitter. Um, according to sources, not that I have tried it ever. Um, but yeah, so meloids, it's a toxic thing that like if things ingest it, it can be a problem. We were talking about it a little bit before earlier. If horses eat blister beetles, they can die. So it's pretty powerful. But ladybugs, it's not toxic to the same level as it is with blister beetles. Why on earth wouldn't you believe me? Sugar ants don't taste like sugar. No, but honeypot ants do taste like sugar. Correct. Sources that can confirm it tastes like grass mixed with chemical they put on switch cartridges allegedly. Roach. Okay, go ahead. Other bugs don't have skin. Are they immune to blister beetles? It wouldn't be as effective, but it is still a chemical defense that probably also tastes bad. I've never my sources my sources have never tried to lick a blister beetle, but I imagine that the hemolymph is also quite bitter. So it wouldn't cause blisters on other insects, but I imagine that the defense chemical would still be the same. Um, but yeah, I think the reflex bleeding and the hemolymph and the cantharidin is like mostly for vertebrate pests or like vertebrate predators. They breathe through their skin, so would it be better for them to breathe in? Yeah, probably. You probably wouldn't want it going down your spiracles, but I've never, I never considered it. It's mostly, I think it's mostly a vertebrate deterrent, but I don't know. Do bugs got taste buds? Not in the same way that we do, but they can still taste things. Their antennae are chemoreceptors. Um, don't put it in a vape. Absolutely fucking not. Um, we'll wrap it up here with this story before we go over to regular chat chats. Um, using an aspirator, so like one of those little bug sucker thingies that I have on blister beetles hurts. It hurts all the way down into your lungs. It's the same thing with like bombardier beetles. If you try to suck them up, the chemical defenses that they release in your little tube is insane. It hurts so bad. And then there's also these other things. Uh, these little tiny carabids that have this incredibly strong chemical defense. Um, the first time that I aspirated one up, I went, and about 2 seconds later, I was just puking everywhere. It was the worst, most like intense, bad taste. I can't even describe like another similar flavor to it. It was just like so immediate of going. um. So yeah, aspirating beetles can get kind of weird sometimes, especially with ones that have uh, chemical defenses, and maybe you don't know. The one that I aspirated and then threw up after, I knew it was a ground beetle, so like there's always a chance, but I didn't recognize it as like one of the ones that has a really crazy chemical defense, you know? Just a little unassuming beetle. So I had no idea. So that was a pain, but we lived, bitch. Evan 1, Beatles 0. Does this guy have something odd on his neck? Yeah, a little bit. I think it's sand or dirt. Yeah, it's just little rocks. Inside goo on the outside. I think it probably was goo that then had rocks attached to it. But yeah, there's that. We are gonna leave it there with Meloids for the end of tonight. But Starberry, there is a solution. If you're afraid of the aspirators, you can buy this. This is a vacuum aspirator. So you don't have to like actually use your mouth power to suck things up. This is like the adult version of the thing that you had as a kid, Ophelia. This is a lot more powerful. And so if you have bug, in this case our bug are all all of these little bits of paper here in your hand. You can turn this up and just suck them in, and then they come down here in the bottom of the tube. So if you are worried about ingesting things, they made these specifically for people who are like collecting ant colonies. Ants are also very chemically defended. So that's why you don't want to like suck them up by hand or by mouth, I suppose. And if you're doing a lot of aspirating, it can get tiring, and also you get the chemicals and the dust in your mouth or whatever. So they made this to like vacuum up a bunch of ants at the same time. So it's fine to be not super on board with using the aspirator, but there are options like bug vac like this. But they also make blow aspirators that instead of sucking in, you just like blow into them like a straw, and it somehow sucks the bug up. I fully admit I don't know how those work. I know they exist, but I do not understand how blowing out makes the thing come back. So, mystery, reverse physics is a great answer. But yes, this is the option for being able to take care of that. Okay, I am going to take a quick break, so I am going to send y'all over to Alveus just in time for regular chat chats. We got through a couple of good groups. We've got some more exciting stuff next week. Monday, we've got Scuffed Power Tool stream. Plus, hopefully looking at some stuff that I collect in Orlando this weekend. So, I will see y'all on Monday. Be good, take a break, go get a drink, snack, whatever. But I will see you, or you will hear me, over on Alveus in like 20 minutes or so. See you, Rooster. Hello. Thank you for the first time chat. See you lurking there. But I'm going to send you all over, and then I'll be over in just a little bit. Bye, everyone.